Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! A little backstory. My family have been breeding dogs for more than 1.5 decades and take a lot of pride in our going job to breed as healthy and typical dogs of our breed as possible. I am currently in my mid-20s and have been educating the people who buy pups from us how to properly care for them since I was 13. Since all of our dogs are a part of the family, we put a lot of thought into where each puppy should go. As breeders, we meet a lot of entitled people who believe they can just get a puppy from us because they want it. That's really not how things work when you're dealing with living beings. The story in question took place over 10 years ago, so I might paraphrase a bit. I was also very young at the time, so I didn't really know what was going on, other than the fact that it was bad. In the story we have my mom, me, the entitled father, the pushover mother, and their hellspawn entitled kid. At the time our breed was still on the rarer side, so the demand was not always the highest. Because the demand wasn't as high as it is today, we had to advertise the pups online, which unfortunately brings a lot of idiots our way. A couple of days after posting the ad, my mom got a call which went like this. "Hello, this is mom speaking." The entitled father answers, "Hi, my family and I saw your ad and would like a puppy." My mom got silent for a bit since you normally introduce yourself before just demanding something. "Could you tell me a little about yourself and your family?" "My name is Entitled Father. I live with my wife, the entitled mother, and our child, the hellspawn. We live in an apartment in the city." As soon as someone mentions they have a child, we get a bit unsure about selling them a puppy, since some kids have no idea how to act around or treat an animal. "Oh, okay. How old is a child? And have you had any pets in the past?" "Hellspawn is 6 years old, and no, we haven't had any pets in the past. She really likes animals though, so we thought it would be great if we got her a puppy." The conversation went on for a little longer, and once it was over, my mom was fairly certain we wouldn't go any further with them. There was something about his tone and just pure ignorance that gave her a bad feeling about selling them a puppy. A couple of days went by, my mom forgot about the entire interaction since she was firm on not going any further with them. Family friends were picking a puppy up at our place when my mom's phone started ringing. "Hello, this is mom speaking." "Hi, we are on our way to look at the puppies. We'll be at your place in 10 minutes. "What?" "We are on our way to look at the puppies. Our daughter is so excited." "What? No. You can't come here now. We have guests." "We're already on our way. See you in 10. My mom got really confused as they hadn't talked about them getting a puppy or anything since the first call a week back. Since he didn't listen, she explained the situation to everyone and said that the entitled family was coming over. 10 minutes later, the entitled family pulled up and walked into our front yard to get into the house through the open patio door. For some reason, my mom didn't want to be rude and figured they could just look at the puppies and leave afterward. If she hadn't made up her mind that they weren't getting a puppy before this, they were definitely not getting a puppy after inviting themselves to our house. As soon as the entitled kid saw all the dogs, she went up to a puppy she thought was cute and started petting it. When the puppy tried to walk away, she started pulling it back pretty roughly in its legs. Neither her entitled father nor pushover mother said a word to her when she pulled the puppy back, even though they were watching her the whole time. Mom says, "Hey kid, you have to be careful with the puppies. They can get hurt if you do that." She barely acknowledged my mom, and her parents still didn't say anything. After a little bit, other puppies started going up to her, as well as the older dogs. When she pushed away the older dogs, my mom once again tried to calmly tell her to be careful with the dogs. The kid ignored her, and a puppy she didn't like or didn't want walked up to her. So she roughly pushed it away, so the pup slid a good 2 to 3 meters over the floor. And that's when my mom lost it. "You do not push the puppies away like that. You guys come here to my house without invitation when we have guests over with this spoiled brat. Get out of my house right now. Leave. You're not welcome anymore." The entitled dad says, We just wanted to look at the puppies since we're gonna buy." No, you're not going to buy a puppy from us or anyone we know given how that kid treats the dogs. She'd be better off with a stuffed animal. Get out of my house. The entitled father tried to say something else, but my mom was not having it and threw them out. My mom rarely gets angry and she was absolutely livid at the time. As soon as they got out, my mom slammed the patio door shut after them and they left. Literally everyone in the room was just staring after them in disbelief. We didn't hear from the entitled family after they were thrown out and warned every breeder we know about them. I know they contacted other breeders, but as soon as the father introduced himself, he was denied. To my knowledge, they didn't get a dog, and I genuinely hope that really is the case. That kid should not be allowed to be near animals. The fact that the parents did not stop her from potentially hurting the dogs tells me she wouldn't have improved with her handling either. A couple of years ago, my parents were looking to sell their home so they could downsize in time for my dad's retirement. In the 12 years they have owned the house, it has gone from being a bit of an unloved 3-bedroom and 1-bathroom property to a 5-bedroom and 2 bathrooms with an extension built on the side. The property is now big enough to split into 2 houses, 1 3-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom. When the estate agent came around, they valued the property at $525,000 as it wasn't a buyer's market at the time, a little less than my parents wanted, but they were keen to start looking for properties elsewhere, so agreed to put the house on the market. A couple of months went by with no real interest. There were a couple of house viewings, but nothing really came from them. I don't think they even came back with an offer. And then the entitled mom turned up. She was looking for a large property for her and her 3 children. For information, she was a single mom and was really keen to put a bid in on my parents' home, but was unable to afford the asking price or get a mortgage. She knew this coming into viewing the home. The estate agent had informed her that because the house had been on the market and my parents were keen to move, they would likely accept a significantly lower bid. So the woman put a bid in for $450,000, the very upper limit of what she could afford. Anyway, unsurprisingly, my parents said no. The estate agent and mom were both angry at my parents, sending messages asking why they wouldn't accept $450,000, because it was the best they would get under the circumstances. They didn't need a 5-bedroom house when they were only using 2 bedrooms. And it was unfair on them to deny a struggling single mom with 3 children a larger home. Again, my parents weren't willing to be bullied into selling, stood firm, and said they had no interest in selling for that price. The last straw was when the mom got in touch herself and informed my parents in no uncertain terms their house wasn't worth the asking price and she could easily go and buy a 2-bedroom house in another area of the city for $350,000, and stick a 3-bedroom extension on a site for less than our property cost, and that they really should consider her $450,000 as nobody else was going to bid more. My dad, who was speaking to her, told her to go and do exactly that and said they would be taking the property off the market thanks to her attitude. She seemed shocked and didn't push again. My parents took the property off the market and we are still here 2 years after. They are now looking at selling again. Hopefully they will have a better experience this time. Just wanted to clarify a bit about the $450,000 as it was so poorly written on my part. What I meant was she couldn't afford to get a mortgage on a property worth $525,000 and could only afford $450,000. She had an extremely large deposit though due to her divorce, which we became aware of when she made the comment about buying a cheaper house and adding an extension. So I worked at a small community bank for a time as a banker, opening and closing accounts, completing paperwork and so on. This occurred shortly after we opened our doors again after COVID. An older gentleman, whom I'll call Jim, came in on a random Monday and asked to speak with a banker. I was available and invited him into my office. Once inside, he related that he and his wife, we will call Karen, were going through a divorce. Jim expressed that Karen had full control over the finances to the point where he didn't even have a checkbook or debit card for the accounts, even though one of the accounts was solely funded by his pension checks. He then informed me that he had come in to check if Karen had been writing checks off of the accounts, as he had a copy of a legal document she had signed stating that she would only be writing checks off of the account for necessities up until a certain date, which happened to be 3 weeks prior to Jim coming in. After ascertaining that he was who he said he was, checking his ID, I pulled up the account in question. Since Karen only had checks for the accounts, we could track and view a photocopy of each check written that had been cashed. We discovered that she had continued to spend not only past the date she was supposed to stop, but she had also been writing checks for non-essentials. Also, a no-no. Jim then tells me that he was suspicious that this would happen because when they began the divorce process, she had taken half of the money out of the account and was forced to put it back. I could see the transactions in the account history, so he wasn't lying. He then asks me what he can do to ensure she cannot touch his money. I told him that since she has a checkbook for the account, taking her off of the account wouldn't guarantee that she couldn't touch it. The only option would be for him to close this account and open a new one with only him on it. He decided that he wanted that, so we did just that. After he leaves, I continue on my day updating my supervisor on the situation due to how strange everything was. Well, a few hours later, Karen, whom I've never met before, storms in and demands to speak with a supervisor. My boss took her into her office. What I was told later was that Karen was demanding I be fired because I was talking badly about her. Well, lies. And that I closed her checking account without calling her to get her consent. My manager explained to her that our policy with joint accounts is that either party on the account can close the account without the other party's consent. She also assured Karen that I would never talk badly about anyone, especially someone I have never met. Mind you, my boss's office is next to mine with extremely thin walls, so she would have been able to hear if I was talking badly about her. She ended up storming out angrily after giving me the stink eye. Edit. Forgot to mention, Jim had called me right before Karen showed up and left me a voicemail warning that she was coming. I wasn't in my office at the time and didn't get the voicemail until after she had left. I just figured out that this subreddit exists and I had a strong urge to share this story. English is not my first language, so please excuse me. This all happened 5 years ago while some of my friends were still in tourism college. How it works in my country is that you need to have a practical exam, so it's literally spending your summer vacation working as a semi-intern paid under minimum wage. Though it's tourism, so they get to work on vacation, kind of. Their job title was something along the lines of house representative. The agency would make contracts with small apartment owners, usually 5 to 15 rooms, and they would resell their apartments through some tourist arrangements. My friend's job was to basically show guests around and be on call 24/7 if any of the guests ever needed anything. So in perspective, houses were scattered around the city or even cities, and it was sometimes very hard to get by them. Especially as the agency was run by, as always is, a greedy guy who didn't really care about providing or rarely providing any means of transportation. So when just 2 guests would need something, it would take you an hour just to walk from point A to point B. So how would day-to-day operations look for them? They had income from new guests twice a week, I think, and the agency would usually transport people by plane and bus. So it would be just one big group. This is your apartment, there is a store, there is a beach, call me if you need anything. Easy, as that's in 90% of the time. Though there was another more damaging group or self-transport group, that's how they called them. Those people were coming with their own cars or whatever, and they would usually have time windows like in hotels where check-in time is from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. The only difference is that those houses don't have receptions, and my friends were basically one. So the timetable was kind of more for them. So they know they will be welcoming guests from 12 to 4. I know all of this because my friends invited me to get there as it was a tourist location with a sea, and it was really nice. Free stay as they had spare beds in their apartment. I only had to spend money on food and nightlife. And I was also kind of shadowing my friends while they were doing their work, and I usually eardropped just from pure boredom. So one day they had to welcome guests at a very nice villa resort. It's on the outskirts of the city, a beautiful place, so expensive, and some parts were still developing as it was kind of brand new. They had one villa finished and polished. It was missing some cosmetic or tribal things outside, but the rooms were amazing. It's 12 to 4 check-in time and we are waiting for 12 families. All of them are in their rooms till 2 a.m. We are waiting just for one more so we can get on our ways and have something to eat. As the resort was so expensive we could not afford to eat there. It's 8 p.m. and the last family did not provide their mobile phone. The only contact tool is a line number from a different country 1400 kilometers away. Again, this is a story from 2016. My friend and I were hungry like street dogs at that point. A third friend joins us and he has a vehicle this time as he is transporting some goods to another city. So he invited us to go with him so we can buy something to eat at the resort. Of course, the moment we took our first bite of food, we were called by the 12th family that arrived kind of shortly after. When we get back to the resort, they are waiting outside of their room in their SUV. So one thing about this SUV, it was really expensive, as you can imagine brand new, but the registration read that it was registered in a small town. And if you know that place, you kind of immediately know they are a bunch of apes. Before my friend was even able to say hi, how are you doing, complaints started firing from top to bottom all around. Insults, F-bombs, R-words, horrible language. The dude looks like you took a construction worker to Versace and gave him Mr. Beast's credit card. His wife was even the work generic Karen. In combination, it was doomsday. They had complaints about everything. How everything is half done, and that's not true. How there are, and this is important, cables hanging everywhere that their kid might touch and die. Those are their own words. The fence around the villa was unfinished and there was a concrete machine next to it. This was the only true part, though who cares? They were not working at the time. They were just chilling in the back. Then he started talking about how he had been working construction his whole life. It was obvious as those people are notorious for selling their father's land and living large after, and how he doesn't want to see construction equipment near him anywhere. After all of that, my friend asked him if he could show us where those cables were stuck. Those aren't cables, by the way. It was radiator pipes not connected to radiators. As you are on summer vacation, I'm pretty sure it will be hot enough without those. And yeah, Quebec can't touch him, and I was actually a teen in her 13 to 15 years. She was just sitting in a car and we didn't see her while they were bombing us with insults. Even me, who was just a bystander, and I told him I had nothing to do with this. The conclusion for them is that they are robbed, and that this apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. They want their money back, but we can't do anything about that, and the agency office is in another city about 1 to 1.5 hours drive away. They forced us to drive there so they could follow us to speak with the owner. The moment we get there, they start with the same lunatic behavior, yelling and insulting everything, though this time in the middle of a very crowded city. What we failed to mention was that 2016 was a hell of a vacation year. Everything was booked for 2017. We saw people begging for literal shades. We left the agency office before them. We had enough. But one of our friend's colleagues was seen sleeping in a tent beside the beach for the next few days. We were sure they failed to find anything. So they probably had to turn around and go back home for another 14-kilometer ride with 2 borders. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.